Blog Talk Radio.
Let's begin.
All right. Greetings and welcome. It is Wednesday, October 1st of 2014, and I am your host, Blake the Eccentric, and this is the Eccentric Perspective on the New American Media Radio, little network here, playing around here. Sort of a, just to give you a little show, tell you about it. It's kind of a red pill, blue pill, kind of going down the rabbit hole kind of show with outside-the-box politics, philosophy, and gonzo journalism. And yes, we'll be here live for about an hour-ish, perhaps. And yes, I said we, because I am going to be joined today by none other than Brian the Brain Engelman of the New American Media. In fact, I have him in the studio right now. We're going to be covering the latest news and current events, and it looks like we've got a major story going on that we're going to have to cover, and there's just so many late new breaking stories. Well, this should be exciting. So let me bring in Brian. Greetings, Brian. How are you?
Greetings, Blake. Let's go to the breaking story.
Yeah, well, I just pulled up Drudge, and there's like, I don't know which one do I start with. It appears that the Ebola story is going viral. All right, anyway, but looks like we have a second person. It looks like has been infected, perhaps, and perhaps more, including I saw something about children. Isn't that wonderful? Because that's a great way to contain things, getting kids infected. So let's see where to begin. I've got many stories on this one, just breaking. I've got USA Today all over the place, from the alternative news, the mainstream news. But yes, this is pretty crazy stuff here. We've got out of the New York Times right here, another Ebola case in Dallas. Health officials are seeking those who had contact with the patient. So just quickly here, health officials in Dallas said on Wednesday that they believe the man who was the first confirmed case of the Ebola virus in the country had come into contact with 12 to 18 people, including some schools.
Perfect.
Right off the bat, I'm like, okay, this guy came, I thought from what I understood, he came from Liberia. Why is he in contact with a bunch of school kids? He just came to visit some relatives, and you needed to go visit school children? I don't understand that. Not that I'm saying this was set up or anything like that. I don't know if I want to go there, although there are some an alarming. There's just so much stuff. I'm kind of overwhelmed, and I haven't had a chance to. Because a lot of these stories are their videos, their interviews, including one I saw on Before It's News. And I know that you can't take everything too literally and seriously over there, but some pretty alarming stuff I'm going to have to dig into, because I wouldn't put it past anything if there was if this was done on purpose. I don't know. I'm not ready to go there yet, but we'll cover it from every angle, Brian.
Blake, let me.
You, yes, please.
Yeah, let me just jump in. Let's talk about an angle. What about tens of thousands of illegal immigrants, people that are coming to the country without, filling out their forms, going through their medical check? Where do they all come into? They all went through Texas. Who's to say this is something that happened from some guy from Liberia? Okay, that's a story. That story would make sense. But do we have any proof that that's the truth? Because we had tens of thousands of people taking that death train, what do they call it, the Beast or something like that, up from Mexico, from South America. And tens of thousands of kids have been dumped all over our country in every state. and then we get Ebola. That was my question right off the bat. What if these kids were infected with something, whether it was something they could naturally have, tuberculosis or strange strains of what is that? There's something going around the country now that's like paralyzing kids. It's called something enterovirus 68 or something like that.
Don't know.
These kids could have either naturally had this stuff, or someone could have injected somebody with something or exposed somebody to something, either by accident or intentionally. And then this is all happening a couple weeks after we see the Georgia Guidestones get a 2014 marker on it. So, yeah, I'm not jumping to conclusions either, but why all of a sudden a 2014 marker on the Georgia Guidestones? Why does it say you need to reduce the human population? What is this Ebola thing that is now spreading all over the place? I've talked about this before, but let me just read you a moment here from Stephen King's The Stand. It says, this is, at a remote U.S. Army base, a weaponized strain of influenza, officially known as Project Blue and nicknamed Captain Trips, is accidentally released. Despite an effort to put the base under lockdown, a security malfunction allows a single soldier, Charles Campion, to escape with his family. By the time the military tracks the already deceased Campion to Texas, oh God, he has triggered a pandemic of apocalyptic proportions which eventually kills off 99.4% of the world's human population. As the pandemic intensifies, a multifaceted narrative, told partly from the perspective of primary characters, outlines the total breakdown and destruction of society through widespread violence, the failure of martial law to contain the outbreak, the military's increasingly violent efforts to censor information, and they do kill the radio host trying to tell the truth live on the air, and finally the near extinction of mankind.
Hey, I think there's a knock on my door. Should I go answer it? All right. Anyway.
There you go. But I mean, I've watched this TV movie. I've read the book on 2 separate occasions. It's an amazing book. It's very large. It's kind of like Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. Very good. Atlas Shrugged, at some point, you're like, all right, I get it. Can we wrap this book up? But Stephen King's The Stand is pretty... This is what I'm thinking of, because if you were listening there, that's exactly what we're talking about, a strain of something that gets out, and then one turns into a couple thousand in one area, and then it just spreads across the entire globe, as if perhaps intentional or foreshadowed, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty freaky. It was in Texas, too. And, yes, we have some mysterious passenger from some airline. But as you said, it could have gone over the border. And when that story first broke and they were first talking about that, I thought it was maybe because everything they knew about Ebola was that it was kind of acted very quickly. You know, you hit you right away, you got symptoms, and you were a dead man walking in a couple of weeks. But now it's like, oh, no, you don't really show any symptoms for the first 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it just hits you like a ton of bricks or something, and then boom, and all of a sudden all your organs are liquefying and you're dead. But meanwhile, you, unbeknownst to you and the people around you, you were harboring some extremely vicious little organism that may or may not have been created in a bioweapons lab somewhere, but that's not really the important thing. We'll have to dig into that. We'll have to cover that angle because it's just the responsible thing to do. But I'm not pointing any fingers or blaming anybody. But we should all have a debate and find out exactly where this is coming from and explore all angles of this. Because as you said, the Georgia Guidestones. Yeah, you got a bunch of mysterious elitists. Who was it, R.C. Christian or whoever built this thing, and then you had this, that 2014. Now that thing has been smashed, I think, now. But yeah, somebody put that up, and apparently, that'd be a dream if they could wipe. If 99% of the people were wiped, there would be a lot of very, very happy eugenicists. I mean, philanthropists out there who would, like to see that. Who think that, we're overpopulated, and that is exactly what the world needs to cull the population but it could be some very unintended consequences. That's very scary and stupid. But who knows what the power structure and what's going on in their heads and how they justify this in their very dark logic. I don't know, but we'll hit it from all angles. Brian, again, so I don't know, where do you want to pick up? Where do you want to start? What else do you want to add to this? So certainly we're going to be spending time on that. Yeah.
What happened at the Guidestones? That new 2014 thing was smashed. Did I see that?
Yes. And I can't remember the source. I think I got that from Mark Dice. He put out because there was that hot story going around the Georgia Guidestones did the 2014 thing, and then I heard that part was smashed. I retweeted it. It's on my Twitter feed from Mark Dice. People can go check that out and see the update that I think it was actually officials that grabbed it and broke it or smashed it. But I'll have to double check that. But yeah, certainly an interesting twist, unexpected thing.
Well, I wanted to say this is from NBC News. It says it's all over the headlines. Enterovirus D68 is making kids sick in what appear to be unprecedented numbers. It might be causing paralysis, or maybe not. It may have infected some adults. But EVD68 is nothing compared to the viral killer that really concerns Dr. Paul Chechia of Texas Children's Hospital, who treats sick kids all day long. Hysterical, that's the way I describe it, he said about the reaction to EVD68. Every year, respiratory virus RSV was a syncytial, not sick. Sorry, I need to pre-read these and try to sound these out, the syllables. Syncytial, SYNCYTIAL virus sends 75,000 or 125,000 children to the hospital and kills as many as 200 every year. A little fuzzy. No deaths have been reported from EVD68, linked to several hundred illnesses nationwide. But anyway, there's this thing that people are trying to say, wow, this thing could be really bad, and what's this? And this is the same time Ebola is starting. Chemtrails have been spraying God knows what for God knows how long. Some say if you put something in the air, then all you have to do is later activate it, and then it's already all over the place. But yeah, there's a lot of illness going around right now, and that was really one of the first things I thought when those tens of thousands of kids were flooding through our southern border. I mean, am I the only crazy one to imagine that if I got to take off my shoes at the airport, that we have a fence on the border and people come in and you check, all right, let me see your ID. What are you coming here for? All right, how long are you staying? Do you have a criminal background? Okay, cool, come on in. Like, am I crazy to expect that in 2014 on our southern border? And to know that tens of thousands of kids are just running in saying, well, now you take care of me, send me to the hospital, you teach me, you feed me, you clothe me. That was one of the first things I thought was, who's checking these kids for, this EVD68 or for Ebola or for tuberculosis? You can take the compassion part out of this where people want to say that, oh, this used to be Mexico. We got to let everybody in here. They have family. It's inhumane to leave them down in Mexico. There's violence down there. They're seeking asylum. We have to be a country. We're a nation of immigrants. We have to let them in. Step one, before we even get to any of that, are you sick?
Yeah.
And that whole kids being dumped in 50 different states in our country now, really just shuffled and scuttled around all over the place. We don't even know where everybody is. I mean, if those kids were sick with this EVD68 or with some sort of strain of Ebola, okay, the first job of the president is to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Like, you're supposed to protect the people. If there's one minor and important point that every ruler is supposed to have, every king, every president, pretty much wherever you look, the number one job that person has if they're going to be the air quote government, they have to kind of keep you safe, from marauders in England, ravaging through and burning down your village as they ransack your stuff, or whether it's a country fighting another country, Ukraine, Russia, just go through all the conflicts all over the place. If they're not even checking to make sure these kids aren't going to disease the population, hey, that's dereliction of duty, if not criminal and intentional. It's got to be one or the other. And that's one of my most frustrating parts of this, is the realization that people really aren't looking out for us. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, to say the least. So, when the power structure, and we don't know whose side they're on, or, are they looking out for us, or do they or do they think that we're overpopulated, useless eaters, and we need to be, our numbers need to be reduced dramatically? I don't know, but it certainly feels that way. It certainly is not the country that I grew up knowing. So I can't imagine why this stuff is going on, and no one's really been held accountable for this, and I don't really trust them to fix the problem either, which might be the worst part. Is do you feel better now that the Ebola thing is broken out? Do you trust the leadership? Do you trust Obama to do the right thing and listen to the right people and do what he should be doing, or is he going to be aloof and useless as usual? I don't know. We make a little speech from the golf course before he gets back and stay in his little bubble. I don't know. Maybe he's just hearing about all this stuff from the news, like we are, Brian, digging into this stuff.
Yeah.
Seems to miss a lot of his meetings. Go ahead.
Well, I'm looking here. It says what is this? DeusNexus.com. What is this? The elite's cryptic monument to depopulation and world government just became more mysterious and creepier. Somebody has officially updated with an engraved cube marking the year 2014 inserted into the English/Spanish slab of the new 10 Commandments for the Age of Reason, desired by its creators. And then this was, taken out and smashed?
Yeah, that little piece, yeah. I'm going to have to...
Still there?
I don't remember where he got his information, but he's usually pretty well researched, so I'm assuming that is true. And it looked like it was done officially. It wasn't just by some vandals or anybody.
Well,
but people.
Anyway, if people want to participate in the show, we got a call-in number, right? If they want to talk Ebola or whatever's on their mind.
We do. I'll give that number out. It should be on the Blog Talk page, but if not, because who knows how people are listening, the number to call in would be 347-539-5076. Once again, 347-539-5076. Get you up and on the air and get your take on Ebola or vaccines or elitists. I mean, there's and pretty much anything goes as long as it's recent and relevant and it's in the news and somehow fits into everything. We'd be happy to discuss any of these issues over the next 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, so let's maybe get to the most important story. What did you say the update was with Ebola and coming in contact with a lot of kids at a school? Do you still have that one? Is there any more details on it?
Sure. Let me see. It looks like I might have to refresh that one. It was from the AP. I do have... Okay, here we go. Got another one from USA Today, if my computer will comply. I don't know what's going on here. But health officials are closely monitoring a possible second Ebola patient who had close contact with the first person to be diagnosed, according to the director of Dallas County's Health Department on Wednesday. That would be today. So all who have been in close contact with the man officially diagnosed are being monitored as a precaution, according to this Zachary Thompson, the director there. And here's a quote. "Let me be real frank to the Dallas County residents. The fact that we have one confirmed case, there may be another case that is a close associate with this particular patient. So this is real. There should be a concern. but it's contained to the specific family members and close friends at this moment. And the director continued to assure, and then of course my page just refreshed. That's awesome. Okay, lucky me. But we'll dovetail this into the other article that I did have. It looks like it's sort of pulled up, but I'm having some little technical glitches here. But we'll see how far I can get through here.
Well, hey, let me jump in.
Yep.
Let you gather your
sure.
See if that refreshes
it's
for you.
Very short. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I can rip through it real quick because it's only a quick 5 paragraphs here. So this is out of the AP officials. I pulled this off the Drudge Report, of course. If you want to get the up-to-date Ebola coverage, that would be a great spot. Matt has been updating that constantly throughout the last couple of days, and here is one hot off the wire. Says authorities say 5 students who had contact with a man diagnosed with Ebola in Dallas are being monitored but are showing no symptoms of the disease. Dallas Independent School District Superintendent Mike Miles said on Wednesday that the students were in school this week after possibly being in contact with the man over the weekend. But he says they're showing no symptoms and are now being monitored at home. Health officials say the disease is only spread by people with symptoms such as diarrhea or vomiting. And as an added precaution, Miles said additional health and custodial staff will be at the 5 schools the students attend. Lastly, the identified man is the first person to be diagnosed with Ebola in the United States, blah, blah, blah. He's been in isolation at a Dallas hospital since Sunday.
And have you tweeted that one out? Because if you make sure that you tweet that out and put, because we want to make sure that
right.
What's that?
That's just it's basically a little update. I don't want to even, it's not, I mean, I basically read the entire article. It's more of just a blurb and a note. But I'm kind of curious, Brian, because you just went back home to Cleveland. I just went back home to Minnesota. Wasn't that like one of the first things you did was go to a school of children and just hang out and whatever? Expose them to illnesses? Why would you do that? You're coming
That's
from
a tricky
Africa.
question. I might have to keep a certain number of feet away. I might have a certain radius of distance I have to keep at all times. I don't know if I really want to admit to that.
Right.
No, but he said the only thing I could think of though, he was saying that he was thinking. Wasn't the story that this guy was going to visit family? Did he go to the school to pick up a niece or a nephew, or something like that?
Yeah, it just says that he's picking, he just says that he's visiting family, but then I don't know. So why would they be like?
Yeah, I mean, if there's
a
grandkid.
Great to see you. Yeah, can you go?
Well,
and
I mean, you never know. If there's a
grandkid
grandkid or a niece or nephew in school, maybe you roll over there and have lunch with them or something, just to make sure you get to see them and hang out for a little bit. I could understand that, but I'd like to know that for
sure. It's weird. I mean, is that what happened when you went home? Your mom was like, "Hey, you want to go pick up your niece from school over in Cuyahoga County and just go hang out with the children for a little bit?" Yeah, you get a little sniffle. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
I could see that, though. I could see that. A lot of my trip was to connect with family and friends and friends and family of friends and family. So, I mean, sometimes, you only get to meet up with somebody for, an hour or two, and then you're on to the next city, and then you're bouncing around, you're meeting. I could understand it. I'd like to get the rest of the story. I don't think it's... Now, if he wasn't here, if nobody knew this guy and he had no links to the community, yeah, what's he doing here? But if he was here to see family, I don't think going to the school is necessarily suspicious in and of itself, but let's take a look at the rest of the story, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, we will see. Yeah, I want to figure out how exactly why they would do that. But we'll find out, I'm sure, at some point. But it's pretty creepy because you start thinking like this is like done by design, and you see why you go to the school and it's just like this. It just sends all kinds of horrible things going on. Because what better way to get sympathy from the the public and have them all start freaking out or spread the disease by infecting a bunch of school kids. But I don't want to go there unless they can, we can make a direct link. But we have to discuss it, unfortunately, because we can't really trust the power structure anymore these days. So, it's all, we got to explore every angle just to be responsible.
Well, Blake, you said that we don't trust the power structure anymore these days. Well, I guess we never should have and we never could have throughout the history of man ruling another man.
I was just saying, even if this was under, if this was under Reagan or if this was under even Clinton or something like that, and there was an Ebola outbreak, or if there was just, something, you would think that the power structure, I would have trusted them to do the right thing. I never would have thought that they had some other ulterior motive.
So when we trusted that Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing story is actually accurate and factual, and when we trust that Waco, Texas, burning down the Branch Davidian compound with David Koresh in there, are we to trust that those things were handled properly by government under Bill Clinton?
Certainly not.
This is nothing new.
It didn't hit me till years later, and the whole Oklahoma City bombing was one of the things that really woke me up initially, is realizing what a completely bogus story that was, and then of course later you'd tie that into the Branch Davidians, and was that absolutely necessary? So no, Clinton was absolutely a pretty sinister dude. But at the time, when we were more naive and less awake, I guess, when we trusted things and trusted them to get the job done. Now that I am awake, right, it's bad stuff. So, but
I'll give you that. There are people like I think John B. Wells talks about the, obviously JFK, but the Oklahoma City bombing as being one of the moments that kind of shook him up, kind of woke him up a little bit and said, hold on a second here. Something is off with this official story we're getting, and it's you never really know what moment that's going to be, but we all wake up on our own schedule. Maybe we're all supposed to be waking up, and that's pretty cool to ponder, but it happens with different people at different times, and when you're in high school, you're paying a little bit less attention to stuff like this, as you're paying more attention to high school football, girls, whatever, and you're a little bit more distracted with life. But that's probably a function of our age, I would assume, Blake.
Perhaps some combination of all of the above that you just mentioned.
Yep. So anyway, where were we? Oh, yes, pandemic.
Yes, so let's see. Do we want to hit the alternative media angles on this and get some of the skepticism in here?
Absolutely.
Let's
start with the fun stuff. You're going to get plenty of well-scripted propaganda from one side. Like, you'll get the narrative you're supposed to get, and that's usually the narrative that keeps the country fighting ourselves in arguing over Republican and Democrat than truth. So you'll probably see something start. You know what I did see though? Sorry, I don't mean to sidetrack, but I want to get to this story. I'm just going to tell you about it. I want to do the one that you're working on, but this is Chris Matthews talking to Ezekiel Emanuel on Ebola. Said, quote, Obama said it was unlikely. It has happened. It's here. So I do want to cover this in a little bit, but what were you thinking as far as?
Oh, no, I had that story pulled up as well. Yes, Ezekiel Emanuel and Chris Matthews was actually sort of behaving like a reasonable journalist and actually being critical of the Obama administration, which was unexpected but refreshing.
Do you have that pulled up in front of you? Because seeing and knowing that Chris... You're having what?
Oh, these weird... I don't understand what's going on. I don't know if the NSA is messing with my computer. I don't usually have these sorts of issues, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty navigating these screens. Like everything's kind of frozen. But I'm going to refresh that one. It's out of Real Clear Politics. Yes, because Obama said it was pretty much unlikely that any Ebola was going to be here in the United States, even as people were screaming about the open borders and such, or why are you bringing in this infected doctor? Yes, he's a absolute hero, but why are you taking him out of Africa, bringing him here to Atlanta? And yeah, they don't seem like they really are trying.
And if you talk about a few hundred years ago, you said bringing them out of Africa and here to Atlanta. Yes, our country has a slave past. It's interesting to think about any component of history, and I mean stuff that before you and I were born, before our grandparents, like things that are just, they are realities, but they're also just stories because there's only so much you can, like, okay, so I understand that, but I can't change the past. All I can do is conduct myself in the present, so I don't need to worry about that. But anyway, I digress. But Chris Matthews here, he says, I'm just trying to follow the logic here. Everybody's being told, don't worry unless they have infectious symptoms. You can see them, but you don't have to worry about catching them. Yet this guy picked up the disease, apparently, from somebody who did not have the infectious symptoms. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel says, again, don't hypothesize because we just don't know. We have no idea what he did or didn't do and how he got it. I'm sure that's going to be vital information to try to understand the transmission, but the idea that there's going to be a widespread outbreak here, I think it's just, again, it's a bit of fear-mongering. We have a single case. This is not a big, widespread Matthews. Yeah, but I'm just going to go back to the president's statement, doctor, and that is that the president said it would be unlikely if we had a case in this country. Unlikely to even have one case. Do you want to see the tape again? Emanuel. He said there wouldn't be an Ebola outbreak. Matthews, no. And in the second part of his sentence, he said in the unlikely case someone brings it here. In the unlikely case someone brings it here. Well, they've done it. We're living in the world of the unlikely already. That's what I'm saying. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm stating the facts, and I wonder if everybody else is. Emanuel, the reason we can be assured here that this isn't going to be a major outbreak is we have a CDC that can do a very good contact tracing. Ooh, by the way, in my voice, yes, the martial law component to shut streets down like we practiced in Ferguson. Witnessed in Ferguson. Anyway, back to the story. Right. Emanuel continues, we have a very good health system that takes universal precautions on all patients with the gloves, and you're not regularly in contact with people's bodily fluids the way it is much more common in Liberia. I think those things diminish it, and I don't think we should get into a panic because we are reassured it would never be in the United States. Matthews, no, the president said it was unlikely 2 weeks ago. Well, it's not the unlikely. It has happened. It's here.
Yeah, I'd say we're in a lot of trouble because how often do we catch Obama basically having to turn around on his word and doesn't seem to be a very effective leader whatsoever. We can't take him at his word for anything. And I can't really, well, I wouldn't believe Chris Matthews or Ezekiel Emanuel. So I don't really know what to do, Brian. I don't know if I should just leave the country somewhere else besides Africa. I don't know. Go hang out on an island for the next 6 months, see what happens. It's pretty disturbing.
You know I'm against this Big Brother spy apparatus. We have a Fourth Amendment right to not be spied on. If we're up to no good, like someone that's getting ready to, behead somebody in Oklahoma and they're kind of starting to ramble and try to get people at work to convert to Islam, and your Facebook page goes a little out there, and you have links to terrorists. Okay, I understand that there might be a need to get a court order to take a closer look at that person. That makes sense. That's totally fine. I'm not a Big Brother fan, but in the case of this situation, don't we have very specific links, like digital links, of knowing who these people are and who may have come in contact with to send out a message, to everybody on your Facebook? There would be a practical application in an outbreak situation to contact all of your circle, your your digital footprint and quickly get to the root of what's going on here. I'm not a fan of the spy apparatus, and I don't know, maybe I could get your thoughts on that, but I just wanted to say this story out of Fusion.net. It says an alleged phone call from the NSA prompted public school officials in an Alabama school district to launch a surveillance program to monitor students' online activities. Administrators of the Huntsville City School District now admit. The NSA allegedly took an interest in the Lee High School student after Yusefi, a straight A student, posted a series of questionable tweets about getting into fights and hitting a teacher. Yusefi claims the tweets were intended in jest, but school security officials searched the student's car and found a weapon, which he says is a jeweled dagger from a Renaissance fair. That was all the evidence school authorities needed to expel Yusefi for the semester and launch a district-wide information gathering program aimed at discovering security threats and identifying gang members. The subsequent investigation led to a series of expulsions of students who were found posting on social media, holding guns, or throwing gang signs. School administrators say the wider surveillance program was conducted at the behest of the NSA, but the security agency now denies it ever called the school. Quote, the National Security Agency has no record that it passed any information to the Huntsville School District, and the description of what was supposedly occurred is inconsistent with the NSA's practices. So, moreover, the NSA does not make recommendations regarding school safety programs. So, I wanted to get that one out there because it's interesting that for a lot less reasons than a possible pandemic, people are spying on your online stuff anyway. This would at least be one positive way to quickly get to anyone that may have been infected with this. Because when 1 turns to 3, we're in trouble, Blake. This thing's going everywhere. Mark my words. When we see 3, this is going to be trouble.
Yeah. So I don't. Yeah, it's kind of this waiting game, I guess, and then with this new strain of the virus that doesn't act as quickly, it's hard to say, how many people could be infected and don't know it until you actually get the symptoms, which is very strange. I think maybe some people are suspicious that something like this might actually be engineered or there's another motive to this, and yeah, I do want to touch on that. There's a couple of articles that will dig into that. One of them is proof that one of these eugenicists, philanthropists, is linked to it, and that would be Bill Gates. And here is the controversial top article on Before It's News today. It's called Read It Will Be Removed. Proof Bill Gates is linked to Ebola as it hits Dallas, Texas. Global depopulation now in the thrust is funeral homes and hospitals are preparing for the masses. So again, this is out of Before It's News, which I do really like. It's people-driven news, but you can't take everything totally seriously. You must do your own research. But
it's very sensational. I like some of the stuff on Before It's News. It's very sensational. A lot of tabloidy kind of unconfirmed journalism, things and theories that you might not be able to quickly disprove, but that doesn't mean you can prove it. So yeah, I'm glad you're explaining the source here, because there have been a lot of unproven claims on Before It's News, but it's still valuable. Like, just in the same way that TMZ is valuable. They're doing a lot of things, and you're like, oh, God, seriously, get away from me. But then they break a Ray Rice story. You go, wait a minute, this is important. Okay. So maybe similarly to a tabloid like that.
Yeah, anybody can kind of drive their own news and put stuff on there, but that doesn't mean it's being overlooked by an editor who's going to fact-check everything. It's kind of up to the reader to decide what's real and what's not, and you get your chance to sound off on the comment boards or whatever. The only thing that I'm disappointed about Before It's News, back in the day they used to have, you could vote, is this true or not? And then people could say whether they think it's a legitimate story or whether not, and then that could kind of give you a good idea of what you were in for. But people, it's up to them to discern for themselves, and here is a bombshell, and it includes a 20-minute video. I've only barely scratched the surface on it. Like I said, there's just so much breaking information on this new Ebola crisis. But anyway, let me dig into some of the bullet points I can. Let's see. It's official. The first case of Ebola has been confirmed in Dallas. Prepare. We knew it was coming. However, the mainstream media has finally admitted its arrival, and the fact aside, I also came into some breaking information on Ebola and proof that the entire thing is not only man-engineered as a bioweapon, but also the people who are behind it, Bill Gates and George Soros, two elite globalists whose desire is to depopulate the Earth to 500 million persons, just like the Georgia Guidestones, and who will attempt to do so using the Ebola virus as their weapon, and now we have proof. Now, I do tend to think that these Bill Gates and George Soros are a couple of shady characters who are not who do not have humanity's best interests in heart, even though they do pose as philanthropists. So nothing would really surprise me with these guys, but apparently something like they say there's a bioweapons lab that's pretty close to where this outbreak happened in, what was it, Leone? I forget the name of the country over in West Africa, but that there was a bioweapons lab apparently owned by Bill Gates. Now, this is something I'm barely scratching the surface on, so don't take me literally. Do your own research, anyone out there listening, or for you too, Brian. But that's just something Blake, I found that I wanted to bring up. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me say it's important that we do this because doing, what are we called? Alternative journalism? Because I think the alternative is getting your pre-screened propaganda from the same 5 or 6 companies. If you want to go to certain television news sites or certain radio stations, there's a strong likelihood that you're only going to get one version of the story. So I wouldn't say this is alternative. I would say this is more responsible and more, we dig even deeper. And I think that's something that we all have to take seriously, is the fact that disproving garbage is just as important as proving conspiracies. Because the more, how is anyone going to sit here and tell me with definitive proof about extraterrestrials? There are some things that are hard to prove. There are some things that are hard to disprove. But either way, what you're talking about, a Bill Gates connection and a George Soros connection to Ebola, this is something we need to dig into and say, hey, is there any truth to this? Because if there's not, let's learn that there's no truth to it and, debunk it in our next conversation. We don't want to be irresponsibly out there just running our mouths about a single thing by any stretch of the imagination. So that being said, we need to do our own research. That's why we ask for your comments on the YouTube pages and responses on Twitter, and on Facebook. Continue the conversation with us. Send us links and call us up. What is the number to call us up again, Blake? Do you have that?
That would be 347-539-5076.
Yes. So, where you can help drive the news, you say. But anyway.
Right.
We got to follow the link. I think you had some more to wrap up on that Bill Gates story.
I'm going to leave it where it's at. I'm just going to throw that out there and give people a little taste. And then I do want to turn this over into the alternative independent media, which is a lot more verifiable and well-sourced. And that would be out of InfoWars, from editor Kurt Nimmo, who does have a pretty interesting article. This also has a 20-minute interview. I think this was with Dr. Ed Group, discussing that, because that's in their backyard here. And this has some pretty interesting information, again, that is very well-sourced, that I would believe. But people can, it's always helpful to do your own research, but InfoWars is very sourced and takes itself a lot more seriously. But let me bring into this article, because it's going to go us in some other different directions. So let's dig in here from Kurt Nimmo. The first Ebola patient in the United States will lead to calls for the development of a vaccine. Now, last week, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel told the Global Health Security Agenda Summit that the Pentagon has a long-standing research program on infectious disease, including Ebola. Hagel said the Defense Department will now begin clinical trials for a vaccine candidate. Here's a quote from Hagel. It says, "On Wednesday, we received approval to begin safety testing for an Ebola vaccine candidate that will be conducted here at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research." Now, the Pentagon is funding an Ebola vaccine under a $140 million project with Techmira Pharmaceuticals. And in August, an experimental serum was administered to Christian aid workers infected in Liberia. The mysterious treatment was produced by MAPS Biopharmaceutical, and which was funded by the U.S. Army. Here's another quote from, this is from Dave Miholovic for Prevent Disease, I guess. He says, "The most fascinating aspect of the Ebola vaccine manufacturing process is how quickly they have brought it to the trials phase. It is virtually impossible for vaccine manufacturers to produce and deliver these drugs in the timeline they have proposed. It typically takes several years from the point of initial vaccine development to human clinical trials, a process which the manufacturers claim is being done in weeks and months. The only way it could have been possible was through years of planning and procurement." Yes, and this is kind of digging into, yes, do they know about this? Is this perhaps something of their making, something for them to perhaps make money, get the public, into a fear? Yes, and there ties into the pharmaceutical companies. Also that they own patents on this thing, but there's also some other angles that tie this together, perhaps some suspicion that this is all a big plot all along. And according to a, well, I don't know, Brian, if you want to jump in here before I jump into this next point here, but so what do you think?
I'm with you. We have to look at every angle of this story and come to a conclusion. Is this possible, provable, or disprovable? If it's possible, we keep looking. If we can prove that it's not, all right, let's move along and keep looking at other angles. But if asking one question leads you to a few more questions, yeah, that's what our job is here for. That's what we're trying to do is, I don't know, I guess just additional research.
Right, and just to get everybody thinking here and going different angles from this. So here's one, yes, it's talking about a collaboration between the Pentagon and the pharmaceutical corporations. So the Pentagon's interest in Ebola, a disease that until this week remained confined to third world countries, is suspicious. This is again from this Dave Miholovic. He says, "It is clear that the U.S. government has been keeping tabs on Ebola for quite a while now. It holds the patents on a strain of Ebola virus known as Bundibugyo that was found in Uganda. And it is, although not clear whether it's the same strain that has created the current epidemic, the patent awarded in October 2012 to 5 scientists is now deposited with the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention." And the local newspaper in Liberia, actually that would be the largest newspaper in Liberia, speculated in early September that this virus unleashed on unsuspecting Africans was unleashed, yes, I guess intentionally, by the Pentagon and the pharmaceutical corporations. Here's where it gets pretty crazy. Now, this is actually from a Dr. Cyril Broderick. He's a former professor of plant pathology at the University of Liberia's College of Agriculture and Forestry. Here's a pretty scary quote. It says, "Reports narrate stories of the U.S. Department of Defense funding Ebola trials on humans, trials which started just weeks before the Ebola outbreak in Guinea and Sierra Leone. The reports continue and state that the Department of Defense gave a contract worth $140 million to this pharmaceutical company to conduct Ebola research. And the research work involved injecting and infusing healthy humans with the deadly Ebola virus." So, yeah, that's pretty bold stuff coming from one of your doctors there in Liberia on the ground, saying that there's something suspicious going on between these high-level areas of the U.S. government and the pharmaceutical companies messing around with Ebola, and perhaps it has gotten out and caused this outbreak. We've also got, let me finish this quick, says, Broderick claims Ebola is a genetically modified organism designed by the American military medical industry that conducts biological weapons tests under the guise of administering vaccinations to control diseases in Africa and other third world countries. Broderick also claims the World Health Organization and other United Nations agencies, quote, have been implicated in selecting and enticing African countries to participate in the testing and are promoting vaccinations. So, and Brian, I'll pause here, but before anyone starts, freaking out, there's actually a lot of evidence that the U.S. government has been involved in these kinds of things before. In fact, it's proven. So we can't put anything past these people. It wouldn't really be that outrageous. So I'm going to pause. I'll let you speak, and then we can get back to some of these other incidents in the past. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say one more time, the phone number if you want to join us is 347-539-5076. Blake, keep your eyes peeled on the studio. We have a caller coming in. Not sure when that's going to connect. Yeah,
we
but I wanted.
Right now.
Okay, let's go to him after this because I also wanted to say this is from the New York Post, if you remember this story from September 19th. It says a group of aid workers fighting Ebola killed by African villagers. Conakry, Guinea. The team of health officials accompanied by journalists came to the village to educate people about how to avoid contracting Ebola. Instead, a group of local residents turned on their would-be benefactors, attacking them with knives and rocks and killing 8 of them, witnesses say. Guinea's government said in a statement Friday that 6 people have been arrested in connection with the attack earlier this week on the health and government officials who were doing disinfection and education on prevention methods. The horrific violence in the village of Wame underscores the mistrust and fear that remains in the area nearly 9 months after the first person here died from what was later discovered to be Ebola. The disease that can cause bleeding from the eyes, mouth, and ears had never before sickened people in this forested corner of Africa. And when it did, villagers immediately feared that outsiders had brought it here. There have been attacks on health centers in several affected countries, but these are the first fatalities. The government strongly condemns the killings of these Guinean citizens, including those officials who were carrying out their duties at the time, the statement issued by the president of Guinea said. These crimes are especially regrettable coming at a time when the international community is mobilizing to help the affected countries in their fight against the Ebola virus. The victims from Tuesday's attack included the deputy administrative official in Wame and the head of the health center there, too. 2 top officials from the nearby town of Zerokere were killed, along with a pastor and 3 radio journalists who had been covering the awareness campaign. Once again, they're going after the journalists, just like in The Stand. The son of the deputy administrative official managed to escape and survive, the government said. Doctors Without Borders, as I wrap this up here, Doctors Without Borders had to temporarily suspend operations in Macenta, Guinea, back in April after a crowd attacked the facility. The mob accused aid workers of starting the outbreak. Some young people threw rocks at the aid workers, though no one was seriously hurt. More than 2,600 people have died across West Africa from Ebola, including at least 500 people in Guinea. So the people that are there are killing the air quote helpers because the helpers are being blamed for bringing it here in the first place. They're not trusting them at all. So to say that we're conspiracy theorists, let's go to a remote corner of forested Africa, and you know what? They're questioning the official story too. So it's not the internet causing it. It's not just crazy right-wing Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street fanatics. No. Questioning the official story is the human thing to do when your spidey senses tell you something's a little off here.
Right, and we've got history of this. Now, I'm going to go to this call real quick. Let me touch up on a couple of these things. This has happened before. CIA, U.S. military released deadly viruses in public numerous times in the past. They released whooping cough virus in Tampa, Florida in 1955. U.S. Navy sprayed San Fran with bacterial pathogens, resulting in pneumonia. U.S. Army released millions of... I thought I'd screw that one up. I'm going too fast. U.S. Army released millions of mosquitoes to spread yellow fever and dengue fever. Of course, we got the famous Tuskegee experiments infecting poor black people with
syphilis, right?
Syphilis. Yep.
Yeah.
Sort of the same thing to Guatemalans. Tested Agent Orange, radiation experiments. There's all kinds of awful things that we've done in our past on innocent people. So, who knows what they're going to do in these little West Africa? Who's going to care? Who's going to cry for them? Who's going to believe that they would infect them on purpose? Yeah.
They would never do that today.
No, because sure they've
because something
lesson.
About today is different than the normal human condition, that they want to rule over you and they don't give a damn about you, and you're considered property in a lot of circles. You're just considered a social security number and a walking piece of debt in other circles. We're little play toys. We're puppies and kittens that are somebody's toy. When you get to the point when you have more money than you know what to do with and you're bored, you start playing a game of Risk, except it's not on a board game. It's with the actual globe, So
right.
These things have happened before. They will happen again. Humans or whatever is in charge here is pretty disgusting in its lowest moments. So every one of these things needs to be looked at in the most bombastic way possible to make sure that we're covering our bases and that nobody's pulling one over on us. And, there are bad plans for a lot of people out there. So anyhow. Let's go to the caller, I think.
Absolutely. Let's see if their take on all this. So 323, you are on the air.
That would be me. How are you doing? Wells calling.
Good morning, John.
Hey, great to hear from you, man.
Yes, here we are from President John Kennedy's last stop, the home of Roe versus Wade, and now the first city in the whole damn country to get a little touch of Ebola. Greetings, and happy days are here again, yes?
You should put that on your live from FEMA region. We're from FEMA Region 9 over here. I forget what FEMA region you're in Dallas, but maybe that should go on the postcard. Home of the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, it's probably FEMA Region 0. That would be
Ground
Zero. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. I was listening to your comments about this Ebola thing. Got a little update for you. You may have heard this already, but there's been a second suspected case, but it's ever so much worse than that. I can't really tell you this. I can't give you the names or get too specific, or I'll get the leaker in trouble. But let's just say that someone whom I know well, that's inside the very facility, that would be Texas Health Presbyterian, was sent home on news that this Ebola case was confirmed. But it turns out, this is so stupid, and this had to come from dailymail.co.uk, and it is that the guy showed up at hospital, and they gave him a handful of antibiotics and sent him on his way. 2 days later, they confirmed it was Ebola. In the meantime, well, his wife is in a position to be in contact with lots of people. I'll just have to leave it at that, because if anybody, however remote the possibility might be, were to pick up on this broadcast, there would be a problem. But this appears to be it's potentially very, very serious, and I'm thinking that by the time it's all over with, there could be. I'm going to just try to give you an educated guess based on limited education. That would be between 40 and 100 people could be infected already. I know we still have a few dozens to play with there. But I have two questions. One, why does this so-called president continue to allow people from Ebola-stricken countries, primarily Liberia and Sierra Leone, to continue to come into the country? And number two, one more time, why are we sending our troops over there? And it's all
to return with the virus also. Then they would catch and return with the virus? How much commerce is really done from this particular part of Africa where we could just suspend flights for a couple of weeks till we get this sorted out? Is that really going to grind the world's economy into the ground? No. And why are we sending troops over there? I don't know. They've been trying to get us into Syria it was last year over chemical weapons. They have chemical weapons. We got to go kill them because of chemical weapons. Well, it's different than other weapons.
Well, somebody would be yelling the R word immediately, even though it would have absolutely nothing to do with anything. They would still claim that to just stop all flights from those countries would be tantamount to racism. You know it. It's all the left has is insane propositions such as that, and they play those every chance that they get. So I'm sure that there was an article today that it's not related to Ebola, at least not yet, but enlisted men and officers in the United States Navy are increasingly mistrustful of the high command there because of this ongoing rolling political correctness. Everybody's just sick of it. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. I suppose everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you have these spikes. It's like whatever it is that we're talking about. So it'll ramp up and it'll reach its zenith, and then all of a sudden, boom, it'll fall down. But right now, it appears that we're reaching the zenith of all this nonsense that we've been subjected to, which began with social programs and then gradually spread into all areas of politics where you can't do or say anything without being in violation of some sensitivity, some unwritten sensitivity law. So anyway, it's just stupid. And people I ran into somebody that I see frequently at a building. You have to go past her and several other people before you get any farther into the building. And she's a black lady, and I said, well, there's been an Ebola case confirmed. And she said, yeah, I know, and there's another guy standing there. And she said, people are saying that this is actually an engineered virus that's designed to kill black people. And, it was really a little bit touching because she had a look on her face, me, the Caucasian guy standing there, and she, the black lady on the other side of the counter, and she almost had a look on her face like, you wouldn't be okay with such a thing, would you? I mean, this is terrible in your view, isn't it? And I said, look, if there's a depopulation effort underway, I think it includes everybody. I don't think anybody's singled out black people, but because I wasn't going to tell her that I think that's a distinct possibility. I started hearing the term AFRICOM about 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought, I wonder what they're doing down there. And, AIDS is supposed to have originated out of Africa, and I think we know how badly Africa struggled with that and still does. And Ebola was just this thing that would pop up every once in a while, and we see what that's turned into. So you know what? It wouldn't surprise me in the least if this was some heinous depopulation effort that started there and spreads to the rest of the world. I mean, these people are desperate to knock out a bunch of people off this planet as we head toward 11 billion within the next 20 years, something like that. So.
Yeah, and we know the Georgia Guidestones being as specific as they were, trying to get it to, really lower the population. And what the hell are these Georgia Guidestones anyway? And my thought was, as soon as we see Ebola in 3 people, John, we're in trouble. And I guess I just wanted to ask you this real quick, and then I'll toss it back to Blake. Have you read Stephen King's The Stand, which I explained the story plot earlier, but are you familiar with the book or the TV series, the mini movie?
Yes, I'm familiar with both of those things, and even more than that, a book by John Brunner from years ago called Stand on Zanzibar, which is a slightly science fictional mirroring of what's going on in the civilization today. But anyway, to your point.
Yeah, it's an engineered weapon. It's a bioweapon that escapes, and this guy takes it to this place in Texas, and it kills off 99.4 or 0.6% of the world's population. And yeah. I've read that book over and over, and I've watched the TV mini movie over and over, and there's a scene very early on where Kathy Bates is the journalist, and the military police, the riot police, basically what we were practicing in Ferguson, shows up and tells her to stop broadcasting, and she claims her First Amendment rights and tells them to get out, and then she's shot and killed live on the air because you can't have the truth getting out there. when you have a pandemic and it's for national safety that the NSA and the National Defense Authorization Act, we just had to do what we had to do. It was an emergency. Sorry. That's in their protocol. So I was just wondering to get your thoughts on that, and then I'll throw it to Blake.
Well, it's just the plain truth of it. Is like it's very interesting when you look at the theory of things and then you look at the reality of things. As a great professor from the University of Arkansas, a black guy, by the way, named Adolph Reed once said, if you can convince the American people they live in a free society, you can convince them of absolutely anything. And we're not. When push comes to shove, it's us and them. They don't care about us. Look, they never have. They never have. And it's becoming more and more obvious just how little they care about us all the time. They want to suck 20, 25, maybe 30 years of productivity out of us, and then they simply want you to die. They don't want to pay your pension. They don't want to pay your insurance. They don't want you living into your 80s or your 90s. They don't want any of that. They just want you to get out of here after they pull all the productivity and tax money that they can out of you. And if the government, whether they start it or not, and usually they do, they get in a crack and it serves them to depopulate the area of their own citizens, well, trust me, they will, which is why, there's the theory and then there's the reality. Philosophically speaking, we should all be, helping each other and doing everything we can to build a prosperous, productive, and somewhat happy society, making what the philosophers referred to in ancient Greece as a good life. But in the end, if you are confronted by armed people who want to bend you to their will, you have a choice, either bend to their will or open fire on them. And if you can't win, then take as many of them with you as you can before you go out. And that's just how it is. I mean, this is big fish eats little fish. And unfortunately for us, we are the little fish. And that's really how I see it. And it's becoming more ridiculous by the day as these agendas are revealed to be precisely what they are. They're anti-humanity. They decide who lives and who dies. They decide who goes to war and who doesn't. They decide. They pre-select the presidents. These elections are a total joke. Witness the 2012 elections. It's stupid. How is it possible that a presidential candidate gets 0 votes in any precinct, let alone multiple precincts? It's crazy. And this Obama guy what is he doing? Nothing. He's following orders. Who's giving the orders? The bankers. It's incredible. I had this fellow named Jim Walley. That's not his real name, of course. But, had him on the program yesterday, and I'll tell you, on Caravan to Midnight, we just let him rip, and he got a little colorful with his language too. It's like, whatever, go ahead. We're not going to censor you. We don't want to do that, But
oh no! Now I lose my gig and I can't broadcast next week. How about? All right, continue. It's nice not having to censor yourself.
Oh, it really is.
For sure.
But I'll tell you, by the time he was finished talking, man, he was on the program for almost 3 solid hours. He really made so much sense. He was so rational, and his argument was laid out in such a logical form that I would be very hard pressed, even on one of those days, to refute anything that he said. Exactly what's happening to this country, exactly why it's happening to this country, and exactly what we can expect. And it's not good. We've just we have just sat back and let this happen. Remember, 90% of all the casualties in any war are civilians. I would submit to you and your listeners that the reason for that is that we allow it. Because you saw what happened out at Bundy Ranch. Well, that's precisely what this government will do if enough of us stand up and say, we're not living like this anymore, and we want you arrested, we want you out of office, and we want you let out of here in handcuffs. And by the way, stand by for a false flag. And I'll just let this out of the bag right here on your program, and that is why all this information about the weaknesses in the security at the White House. Is it so that nobody will be surprised if somebody pulls a Kennedy number on Obama? Probably. Why would you let out in the public sector how weak the security is and how far into the White House this guy got? And then somebody comes on and goes, he could have had a chest pack on and just let it off. It's like, why would you want to give some idiot an idea like that? So stand by. It's going to get weird. 2 more years with this guy? Really? 2 more years with this current president? I don't know, but I just sense something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of articles on that, and it's almost like boring. Yeah, why are they discussing this over and over again? All the security breaches. And that's been in the cards for a while. Like, yeah, they can try to make him into a martyr or something bigger than he was in real life, because there really isn't much to speak of what he actually has done in the last 6 years. So nothing would surprise me. And of course, yeah, you're talking about like the little fish and stuff, and you're talking about that lady saying that this might be a specific bioweapon, and I don't know if that's true or I don't think so either. But it certainly would be an easy place to test any of their experimental vaccines or bioweapons or what have you. Now, I've also been looking into this story. I've barely gotten to dig into it, and I know it's on before it's news, so I'm not taking it too literally, John, but I'm curious. There's a claim, an accusation that there's a biolab near this place where the outbreak occurred, and that it's, I guess, owned or something, that Bill Gates has something to do with it or might be behind it. Do you know anything of that? Can you confirm that? Would it surprise you?
You're talking about the outbreak in Africa or the outbreak here, or the reported case here?
The one in Africa.
Yeah, I've heard a little chatter about it, but nothing that I could actually put my finger on and say, yeah, okay, that looks real. But there are rumors just running around all over the place. It would be very difficult for them to depopulate us because we'll shoot back. So the easiest thing to do would be to create a huge scare and then have the citizens just take care of themselves by turning on each other. And all you have to do is just cause a big enough panic, and that's what will happen. You see the way most people conduct themselves in traffic. What do you think they would do if they thought their lives were at risk?
Mass chaos. I'd expect Ferguson. Oh, look, we just got to practice that again. Oh, we practiced that after the Boston bombing. Good. At least we're all practiced up.
Yeah, when people turn savage, it doesn't matter if man, woman, child. I mean, this moron in Florida punched an 80-something-year-old man in the face because the guy walked over to him and asked him if he wouldn't, talk about TNA quite so loud in this Applebee's restaurant. And the guy punched him in the face, almost knocked him out. That's a real man that knocks an 80-something-year-old man down like that over a request to settle his loud, vulgar mouth down. But alas, that's the society we live in now.
And I wonder if it's always been that way, or if we just have more instant communication so we can talk about the jerks quicker to make it seem like they're everywhere when it's the same amount of people acting like jerks, or if something has actually changed with this latest batch of humans.
I don't think much has changed, brother. But, if you can't go to work at your food processing plant in Moore, Oklahoma, without some insane moron cutting your head off because you, number one, he didn't like white people and was quite vocal about that, but be that as it may, then seems to me that human nature has not changed. I mean, our behavior has changed, but our character really hasn't. And personally, I think that there's nothing that will instill respect and courtesy in your fellow citizen like the awareness of the distinct possibility that if you go too far, you may be killed because that person has a firearm in view on their person. Back in the Cavalier days, the ladies, they were all dressed up and made up, and hair was done, beautiful gowns and all of this stuff. But their weapons were disguised as jewelry. They had little daggers and tiny little pistols and things like that on them, and their little garter belts and little brooch pins that were actually little daggers and things like that, because that's just the way it was. And they were able to live in a marvelous style and live quite high up on the proverbial hog, as they say. But they were armed. And when people are armed, other people tend to be polite. Because if they're not polite, then you know that they're crazy and they're on some sort of a suicide run. And it's okay to just go ahead and accommodate them. it sounds draconian, it sounds insensitive and all that, but life and death, those are realities, and so it really, I think, matters more how you live than the fact that you live for a while and then die. So if you want a polite society, it's like somebody said one time, God created man, and Sam Colt made them equal. And I think I
love
that's
that one.
True. I think it's true. I really do. I don't like it necessarily, but again, there's the theory and then there's the reality. So there we are.
No, I absolutely love that one. And, I mean, we've seen quite a few weird situations happen over the past few months specifically. You referenced the guy in Oklahoma, this idiot cutting somebody's head off. But, I mean, we have in Walmart in Ohio, guys gunned down because he's walking around with one of the gun-shaped toys that he picked up off the shelf at the Walmart, and he was shot. No questions, no plan, just shoot him. There was that story, that guy in Georgia, what was his name, LeVar Jones, and thank God he's still alive. Cop pulls up, he wants to see his ID, try to give him a traffic ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. And then the cop starts yelling, freeze, get out of the car, put your hands up, and then he just starts shooting into him. It's like the cop commanded him to go get his ID, and then when he reached for it, he was shot. Like, give better commands, pal. And it's just all across the country. The first instinct from the police is to jump toward violence, but then you have a situation in the Northeast. I forget that lady's name off the top of my head. Maybe in Connecticut, she had a gun for self-protection, and now she's been arrested and charged with stuff, and just for having a gun and crossing a line. Like, there's no line that you can cross with the Second Amendment, and we're just living in a culture, in a world, Blake and John, that the people who have all of the sanctioned rights to carry weapons are now jumping to violence, and the people are continuously and repeatedly stifled from just walking around with their personal protection device on their person in normal situations. Oh, you don't need that. Well, in Columbine, you needed it in a school. Oh, you don't need that. Sandy Hook. Well, let's put that one on the side for a second, but it could be at a Batman movie theater. It could be at the Boston Marathon. Anywhere you're at a food packing plant, you run into a nut job, like you said, on a suicide mission. We all have the right to have our personal protection, have our handgun on us, but this society has made it so incredibly difficult to do that a lot of the population simply doesn't. I mean, I see that as a problem.
Well, it is a problem because a lot of these guys are, a lot of people are looking for a legal way to kill people, both in the service and also in the police departments. Now, that's not to say that everybody's like that, because obviously it's not that way. And I've said this many times that the police, sorry about the background noise, I'm having to move around a little bit. The police perform acts of heroism every day. They crawl into those cars that are dripping with gasoline, like at the end of that movie Crash. I think Crash is an extraordinarily poignant movie about how your circumstances affect your behavior. But the good side of that was that the good side of human nature does exist. If you can just tap into it, these tragedies don't have to occur. But tapping into it can be problematic. But like in that Tom Cruise picture, I want to say it was Jack Reacher. There was a guy who had joined the service because he wanted to find a legal way of killing people, and he did. And so you're going to have those kind of people. There are predators out there. There are killers out there. But again, gentlemen, it's not the fact that we live. It's how we live. It's what kind of a society we want. And until we can all get on, maybe not the same page, but let's read out of the same book philosophically, we're going to have these conflicts. The police have to, in the end, and I'm not sticking up for them because, when I heard about that moron in just a savage, just a mean bastard up there in New Mexico, and that homeless guy that was living out there I guess he was in the state park.
Yeah, that was terrible.
He
said, well, you see the part about I'm going to shoot him in the penis here in about 15 minutes? And then the woman who was talking about it said, if he hadn't turned and taken the shot in his lower back, he would have been shot there. It's like that's just mean. But look, I don't understand why people don't get this. There are mean people out there. There are mean people who do not care about the law. They do not care who gets hurt. The more who get hurt, the better they like it. I mean, imagine being one of that woman's coworkers, and you actually see her head severed from her body. Now, there's an image that would stay with you for a while. I mean, some of these people are absolutely out of control. They're not like us. But how do you identify them? Well, you don't. You can't, mostly until it's too late. You're already in it.
And when you're in it, you need a way to defend yourself. That woman clearly, I'm just going to assume, did not have the physical strength of that murderer. If she had her gun on her, she might have been able to stop that, or someone standing right next to her. It wouldn't have had to wait how much time it took for the CEO to come in, like the cowboy, to save the day. It's all up to us to save our own day. Like your aunt, your mother, your sister, your daughter, your significant other should all be carrying something to protect themselves in case they run into a madman. And that's why we have our Second Amendment. But it's all upside down now. It's very upside down.
Yeah. Yes, it is. You know, my martial arts master back in the day taught me something I thought was really very good, and I've held on to it ever since then. The most dangerous adversary, regardless of the degree of your training, the most dangerous adversary is the one who's going to attack you, but you don't know he's going to attack you. It's hard to defend against, if somebody's, putting on his fancy martial art stance, well, then you know that you're about to have a little joust. But if it's somebody just standing there and you're next to them and they happen to be in your blind spot, you're just having a nice day and everything's going along fine, and this guy is about to cut your head off, but you don't know it, that's a problem. Somebody should have seen that this dude was a problem. But what would happen? We hear you've been trying to convince people of Islam, you don't like white people, we consider you to be a problem, so we're going to fire you. Well, they already did fire him, and then he came back. I mean, many years ago, that idiot that was out there talking to trees and took an AK or something and shot these 5 Vietnamese kids in Stockton, California. Well, what the liberal press, even back in those days, failed to mention was that a week later, some Mexican dude killed 7 people up at a plant in California using a knife. But we didn't hear about a knife ban. So this is why the Founding Fathers understood that governments are stupid, and they make laws that apply to everybody, but they don't apply to everybody. And especially they don't apply to them. This is why we've got to hold on to what we have here, and we have to this November, if for no other reason than to make a statement. 90% of those people up there need to be thrown out. I don't care if you vote for Alfred E. Newman, the guy from Mad Magazine, little character on the front. Look a little bit like Ted Koppel.
What me worry? What, me worry?
No. We've been warned, but we didn't listen. We've been shown, but we didn't see. We heard, but we didn't listen. Well, now some of us are getting our heads cut off, so maybe a few more people will listen now. And maybe eventually we'll behave in a fashion with a unity that will send the message that we don't need an all-powerful government to run our lives. In fact, we will throw you out. Now, look at you now. You were the almighty, and now you're nothing. And get the hell out of here. And your name's on a list. You will not be permitted to have any office ever again, and neither will any of your kids. In fact, you, as a result of your conduct, have now managed to bar your entire family, your entire lineage and progeny from ever holding any political office, because there may be some revenge there. And we're just not going to risk that. I mean, we got over 300 million people. Surely we can find 500 that are suitable to, occupy a seat in Congress. But these dynasties have got to go. They've got to go. We keep reading these stories about how they're eventually perverted, they're twisted, they eventually go wrong. Well, yeah. So you're letting it happen again? Because why? You're too busy with your sweet and salty snacks? Look, this country is number 1 in obesity around the world. Number 2 is Mexico. Marriage is at a 93-year low, including same-sex couples. 31.6% of people under 30 years old, if I've got the stat correct, live at home with their parents. They have this huge college tuition bill. They got no job to pay it off with. This is wrong, and it's it starts at the government at the top, and it all rolls downhill, and we've got to do something about it. And if we don't, then we deserve whatever we get. Deserve it, and we'll get it because we allow it.
Well, you are following all these stories, these important issues on your site as well, Caravan to Midnight. Why don't you take a second and tell us about what you've had going on over there, how people stay connected with you, and as this Ebola story continues to progress here, it's going to be in your backyard. You are patient zero. You are right next to it, so I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to talk, but what are you up to on Caravan to Midnight these days?
And quickly, gentlemen, sorry, just to interject, I've got to run here, but John, thank you so much for being here. And gentlemen, I do apologize. I only set up the show for until 12:30 left coast here, so the feed's going to cut off in about 4.5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But,
perfect. Well, then we have a 4-minute warning. Do we have any calls on hold, by the way?
No, there is nothing, and I'm going to have to jump because I have to run. But thank you again.
Well, thank you again.
Right.
Thanks for the airtime. I appreciate it very much for turning over some of your time to me. But just a couple of things.
Anytime.
But, when you go to your iPhone, the device that never fails to deliver when hacked. Of course. You can download the Caravan to Midnight app. And it's a real easy-to-use app, and it's great. And right after you do that, go ahead and download the Ebola Project and go ahead and allow the push notifications to reach you, although I didn't get any push notifications about this Ebola patient in Dallas. So I don't know what real value that is, but that app is, but it is available, and I downloaded it. But all kinds of wonderful guests are coming on the program, uncensored, unexpurgated, and we're also about to go to terrestrial radio. Boston runs us on Saturday nights for a couple of hours. And then station in Utah is about to pick us up Monday through Friday. We're playing the program in the afternoon from 2 to 5 is my understanding. And so it's the Caravan is getting longer and a bit stronger, too. So join us. We'd love to have you.
Excellent. Very good. Well, it's unfortunate that we got to reach out to you on short notice here because of something so screwed up on the day the Secret Service director is now resigning. That's breaking news, but, I mean, okay, that's step one, but once again, it should have never happened in the first place. But, yeah, absolutely. If you guys haven't checked out what John B. Wells is up to, go check out Caravan to Midnight, and absolutely, we will continue this conversation. Thank you for jumping on with such short notice today, and we'll have to keep in touch as the months tick on, as we always have.
Have you ever seen a year go by so fast in your life? Wow.
Well, you've been incredibly busy bouncing from coast and building your own empire over there. That's got to be a whirlwind inside of a whirlwind for you.
It is, but you know what? Every day when I wake up, I get up at 0600 every morning, and I look forward to coming down here and doing this because now I don't have somebody standing over me telling me what I can say or what I can ask or what I'm allowed to allow the guest to say. We just let it rip, and it's not a job. It's a real work, and more than that, for me, it's a mission. So I'm just delighted to be able to be in league with people like you, and to be able to get the word out and get it out now while we still can, because as things progress as they are, there will come a day when we can't say anything without winding up with a Cuban vacation, all expenses paid, no phone call and no lawyer.
Live from FEMA Region 9, you are listening to TNAM Radio. Yeah, you can't look at the NDAA and all of this crazy stuff without thinking that it will actually be used at some point. That's why it's here. So, John, my friend, stay safe down there. Keep us posted as you get more breaking news. Shoot me some text messages, and I'll disseminate them on Twitter, or we'll bring you in for another program, because you're definitely going to be very close to all of those people working at the medical facilities, and I know your contacts are going to be very strong as always. And let's just pray that we get through this okay, and we'll see how the chips fall at the end of the day, I suppose.
Yep, one way or another, we'll be all right. If things get stupid down here, I'll let you know. I'll sing out, all right?
Sounds good, John. You have a great day, sir. Thanks for your time.
Goes both ways. Take care.
All right, so for Blake Walley over here at the TNAM Radio Network, thank you for listening to us. We appreciate